What up, world? It's your boy Robert from TCG Funkytown, coming in with some helpful hints for new Magic players. One of my great supporters had an idea, and a splendid idea he had. He thought that going over some simple mistakes that new players commonly make would be a good idea, and I agreed. I have learned that minor mistakes can cost you the game. Guys, if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell some friends, tell some families. I'm trying to do some big things here. As you can see, I decided to put a video in the background so you guys don't have to stare at my mug whilst I explain some of these key topics. I'm playing a little bit of World of Warcraft today, a private server I have inhabited for the last couple of years. Warmane. How I enjoy thy toxic environment. Warmane is a Wrath of the Lich King free server. I'm a co-GM of a small guild here that does a little bit of Ice Crown Citadel raiding. We also do other things, TOC and some other things that are related to this expansion. I will also be recording and posting videos of our raids as well. Stay tuned for that. Let's move on to today's topic. The top 10 tips for beginners. Moving right along, tip number 1. The first piece of advice I can offer you is to not be scared to mulligan. What's a mulligan, you say? A mulligan is something you can do when you're not satisfied with your hand. In your opening hand, you will draw 7 cards. Let's say you get 5 lands and 2 artifacts. This will not allow you to begin formulating a game plan. This is a perfect time to mulligan. Another situation is whenever you draw no lands. The worst thing about playing Magic is getting mana screwed. A mulligan will allow you to shuffle your current hand into your deck, and then shuffle your deck and draw 7 new cards. Depending on your pot of players, the first mulligan doesn't have a cost, but each mulligan after that will require you to put the amount of cards on the bottom of your library that you have mulliganed. Example, if you did 2 mulligans, you will pick 5 cards to keep and put the other 2 on the bottom of your library in any order. Opening hand is crucial. The cards you have in hand will help you establish your board state. Tip number 2. Organize your hand and board. Organization is key. Putting similar lands, artifacts, creatures, and enchantments together will help you reduce the risk of misplays. I typically order my hands from lands, and then I order them by CMC, which is converted mana cost. Converted mana cost is the amount of mana that is used to play a spell. For example, if you have a card that requires 1 colorless mana and 2 blue mana, this spell has a CMC of 3. This is particularly helpful when you start playing cards like Collected Conjuring and Archmage's Charm. This allows me to see how I can progress my board state and also which order I should play my cards. Preparation is key once again, and it can help you secure victory. Tip number 3. Know your deck and your opponent's deck. As new sets come out, the meta changes. These changes bring about new commanders, new playstyles, and oftentimes cards that were once garbage are now beneficial. Use the new sets to your advantage and research which decks are powerful, and also consider which new cards can help boost your deck's power and further increase playability for you. Knowledge is power. As you learn about more cards, more combos become available to you. Tip 4. Use your life as a resource. Do not be scared to lose a little life. This statement plays well for players who play black mana cards. You have many things that you can use your life as a resource for. You have tutors, fetch lands, shock lands, and many other cards that allow you to use your life as a resource. At the end of the day, whether you win with 1 life or 100 life, if you can use it, you should. Also, don't be scared to sacrifice creatures. Depending on the deck that you have created, there's Graveyard Recursion, which allows you to pull these cards from the grave back into your hand or your library. Think Phyrexian Reclamation, Oversold Cemetery, and Haunted Crossroads. Tip number 5. Always cast spells at the last possible moment. Utilize your phases properly. You have quite a few phases in Magic, and they are as follows. You have your untap phase. This is where you untap all your permanents unless something prevents you from doing so. Upkeep, where most enchantments, artifacts, and creatures will require something to happen at upkeep. Think mana crypt. Draw, where you draw your card for the turn. Main 1 comes before your combat phase. Combat phase begins with start combat, then you declare attackers, your opponents declare blockers, damage is applied, and then combat phase ends. After that, you have a second main phase. This is where I would encourage new players to play their spells and lands, unless you need it for your main phase. This will also keep your opponents on their toes, as they will find it more difficult to analyze what you're doing. Tip number 6. Use abilities at the last possible second before combat damage and second main phase. Some decks run cards that allow you to pump your creatures, create mana, think Karametra's Acolyte, Priest of Titania, or do other types of shenanigans before combat to give you a competitive advantage. Use those abilities when they will be most beneficial. Tip number 7. Be aware of the board state. I see many people struggling with threat assessment. They see an opponent as an immediate threat, but fail to realize they are allowing another opponent to build up a huge board state. I see this happen so many times when it comes to stacks players. The thing that I have noticed is that you have to understand how other decks operate and not just your own. Stacks players typically play spells that restrict the amount of lands you can untap or how many spells you can play a turn. Think Static Orb, Winter Orb, Moderation, and Rule of Law. Just a couple of those cards out there that do that. These types of decks can be oppressive, but also they can be helpful because you have to remember they can keep everyone on the same page, prevent people from ramping and going off early. Green has the potential to do some crazy shenanigans and go infinite really quick, but be wary. Control opponents can get out of control quickly as well. Be mindful of the board state and always watch what's going on. Tip number 8. As I said earlier, Magic is a strategy game, and to be effective, you must plan 2, 3, and even 4 steps ahead. It's not just about what you can do this turn right now. What can I do turn 5, 6, and 7 that'll benefit me? What do I have in my hand that's going to help me push my game plan? How can I get established now in a way that'll help me pop off in a few turns? Playing cards that are essential to your game plan but not super threatening are good choices. Allowing someone else to be the main target while you focus on building your board is not a bad idea, and that can help further your strategy. Tip number 9. Familiarize yourself with the basic rules. I briefly mentioned the steps and phases earlier, but there is much more to note than that. I will make a video in which I go in depth on the stack and provide scenarios in which learning the stack will be beneficial. But for now, I just want to hit the basics. I don't want to go too far in depth. The stack is the way in which spells and abilities will resolve. Playing spells in a certain order on the stack can change the course of the game. Tip number 10. Use dice and counters to track triggers. Dice and counters are cheap, and you should always come to play Magic prepared. As you build your deck, be mindful that there are many things to keep track of on the board. You have to be watchful about your cards, but also watchful for your opponents. There are people out there who play decks that are called Hug. These players can provide useful buffs for you, but watch out! They can turn the tables quickly. Guys, thanks for tuning in for my 10 tips for new Magic players. Remember, we all play this game to have fun. Make sure you be a helpful brother and sister and teach others when you can. Once again, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I also do my daily booster breaks as well as my weekly booster breaks, and more videos like this will be coming as well. Hope you guys have a funky day.